Tonight, let us drift into a world of wonder. Imagine a village touched by the mysterious fog at dusk, where stories are whispered by the firelight. One such story is about the rainbow phoenix, a creature of beauty, magic, and secrets. Close your eyes and relax as we journey together with Alina, a girl whose curiosity leads her into the heart of the jungle, in search of a mythical bird that could make dreams come true. Let the soft words and gentle rhythms guide you into a world where anything is possible, and let them carry you into a restful sleep. The tale of the rainbow phoenix drifted through the village like the fog that crept in at dusk, silent, lingering, impossible to pin down. No one remembered who first spoke of the bird or when the story had taken root, but it was as much a part of the village as the ancient trees surrounding it. On chilly nights, when the fires crackled and shadows danced against cottage walls, children would huddle close, their faces half lit by the orange glow, eyes wide as the old men and women shared fragments of the legend. They spoke of feathers shimmering in colors unknown to mortals, a creature so dazzling that it seemed as if 1,000 sunsets had been trapped within it. The phoenix, they whispered, was not just a bird, but a being that held the secrets of life and time. Its plumage would shine brighter than gold, yet soft as silk, and its eyes were said to hold galaxies within them. If one was brave enough to venture into the heart of the jungle and find the bird, the phoenix would grant them a single wish, a gift that could unravel fate and reshape destiny. And yet, no one dared to search for it. The jungle was a labyrinth of shadows and secrets, the path to its heart hidden and veiled in mystery. The jungle, the elders warned, was alive, watching and waiting. Many believed it had a mind of its own, and that it had no desire to let intruders walk freely within its depths. Some said they heard whispers from the trees on still nights. Others claimed they had glimpsed creatures that vanished the moment they turned their gaze. Only the foolish or the truly desperate would dare disturb such a place. But Alina was neither foolish nor desperate. She was curious, a restless soul, the kind to follow a stream just to see where it led, or to lie beneath the stars, wondering what lay beyond them. The villagers thought her odd, a girl who wandered far and lingered in the village square long after others had returned to their homes. She would listen to the tales with a gleam in her eye that spoke of dreams others had long since set aside. One evening, as the firelight waned and the stars pricked the sky, Alina heard the story of the phoenix as if for the first time. She felt as though the story was calling to her, a voice threading itself through the darkness, beckoning her forward. An ache took hold of her, a yearning to see that impossible creature, to stand in its presence and feel the world shift. Her family, her friends, Even the village elder warned her not to let her heart be led astray by such fancies. The phoenix, they said, was a tale for dreamers, for those who wished for something beyond their reach. But Alina had always believed that the world held more than it seemed willing to show. So one night, she made her choice. As the village slept, she packed what little she owned: a small knife, a bundle of dried herbs, a water skin, and a single candle tucked safely into a hollowed gourd. She wore her warmest cloak, the color of moss and bark, and laced up her boots with fingers that trembled, not from fear, but from excitement. The village lay hushed in the glow of the moon, its cottages silent, unaware of the young girl slipping through its heart. Her steps soft as whispers. As she passed the village square, she paused, glancing back only once. Her breath hung in the air, curling like smoke, and for a fleeting moment, doubt crept in. But the stars above seemed to wink in approval, their silent light guiding her. She turned away from the village and set her gaze on the dark expanse of trees ahead. The jungle waited, vast and unknowable, like the pages of a book yet unwritten. Somewhere within it lay the heart of the mystery, and within that heart, the rainbow phoenix. It was said that no map could guide a person to the creature. No compass could point the way. The phoenix, they claimed, chose whom it wished to see. As Alina took her first steps into the forest, the air seemed to shift, heavy and thick with secrets. The trees loomed overhead, casting shadows that twisted and swayed as though they were alive. The sense of earth and leaf and something faintly sweet enveloped her. The jungle breathing in slow, measured inhales. She felt it watch her, assessing, deciding. And as the darkness swallowed her whole, Alina knew she had crossed the threshold into the unknown. There was no turning back now. She was bound to the legend, bound to the path ahead, her heart pulsing with a mixture of fear and thrill. Dawn broke over the jungle, seeping through the thick canopy like liquid gold. But Alina barely noticed. Her steps were light, yet her gaze was cautious, darting from shadow to shadow as she moved deeper into the emerald wilderness. The jungle surrounded her, immense and ancient, holding secrets in every leaf, every whisper of wind. It was as if the trees themselves were murmuring to each other about her presence, passing her arrival from branch to branch, root to root. She could feel eyes upon her. It was a sensation unlike anything she had known, as though the very earth was aware of her, each and every movement. She stepped carefully, her fingers brushing against rough bark and cool leaves, as if hoping to draw strength from the ancient life around her. The jungle floor was soft beneath her boots, thick with moss and fragrant with fallen petals, some of which glowed faintly in the dawn light, like jewels scattered upon the forest floor. For the first time, Alina understood why so few dared to enter these woods. There was a power here, something vast and watching. She could feel it. An ancient presence that seemed to pulse in time with her heartbeat. She thought she saw figures from the corner of her eye, fleeting shadows, half-formed shapes in the mist that vanished when she turned her head. Her grip tightened around the small knife at her belt, though she knew it would be of little use against whatever strange magic lay hidden within the depths of this place. As she continued, she noticed small carved stones along her path, each one marked with intricate symbols that twisted and looped, unlike any script she had seen. They seemed to guide her, luring her deeper, even as they promised no clear direction. She traced the lines with her fingers, feeling the grooves worn into the rock, as if countless hands had done the same before her. Guides from those who came before, she whispered to herself, feeling both comforted and unsettled by their presence. The air grew thicker as she journeyed onward, filled with a mix of scents, rich earth, wild blossoms, and something else, faintly sweet and haunting, like a memory she could not quite place. She stumbled upon a river, narrow yet deep, its waters black and mirror-like, reflecting the trees in perfect stillness. She knelt beside it, cupping her hands to drink, and caught sight of her reflection, a face she almost did not recognize. Her eyes looked back at her, sharp and wary, yet filled with a light that was both familiar and strange. She had changed. She realized even in the few hours she had been within the jungle. This place had begun to shape her. The journey twisted onward, and the jungle seemed to shift around her, as though the very path changed with each step she took. The vines grew thicker, tangling together like grasping fingers, and she had to duck and weave through them, her cloak catching on branches and thorns that seemed to reach out with a life of their own. More than once, Alina heard strange sounds, soft, echoing calls that seemed to drift from everywhere and nowhere at once. There were the trills of birds she had never seen, their melodies complex and winding, and the occasional rustle of unseen animals. Once, a pair of gleaming eyes watched her from the shadows, vanishing into the undergrowth the moment she moved. She felt as if the jungle were testing her, assessing her every reaction, her every choice. By midday, Alina stumbled into a clearing, her legs trembling with exhaustion, though her spirit remained fierce. The sunlight broke through the canopy here, illuminating a cluster of stones arranged in a circle. In the center lay a single feather, unlike anything she had ever seen. It shimmered faintly, a pale silver with the faintest hint of color at the edges, as though it were the memory of a rainbow rather than the real thing. Alina approached it slowly, breathless, her fingers hovering just above its surface. She dared not touch it. Somehow it felt like a gift, an invitation. She understood now. She was on the right path, being led closer to the heart of the jungle, deeper into the mystery that surrounded the rainbow phoenix. But it was only a glimpse, a faint promise of what awaited. The feather stirred slightly, moved by an unfelt breeze, and in that instant Alina felt a thrill course through her. The jungle was alive, yes, but it was also watching her with a strange intent, as though it had chosen her to continue. She could feel its silent encouragement, urging her forward, even as the trees whispered warnings. With the feather left untouched behind her, Alina continued on, her steps now surer, her heart filled with wonder and caution alike. Each step felt like part of a ritual, an initiation that was leading her further into the unknown. She knew now that there would be no simple path, no easy guidance. The jungle would lead her only as far as she was willing to go, as long as her heart remained true to her purpose. And somewhere, hidden within its depths, the rainbow phoenix awaited. As the days bled into each other, Alina found herself woven into the rhythm of the jungle, though its pulse was as elusive as a fleeting shadow. She walked beneath a tapestry of green, where beams of sunlight struggled to pierce through the thick canopy, casting strange patterns on the forest floor. The jungle was both her guide and her trial, and as she ventured deeper, it revealed its secrets in whispers and half-seen sights. Her first trial came in the form of a lake, so still and perfect it appeared as a glass stretched over the earth. Alina knelt at its edge, captivated by its flawless reflection. But as her fingers grazed the water's surface, she found herself staring not at her own face, but at an older, wearier version of herself. Her hair streaked with silver, and her eyes lined with grief and wisdom. The image spoke no words, yet Alina felt its silent questions. She was forced to wonder, was this future carved into stone, waiting for her on a path she had yet to take? Or was it merely a phantom of her fears, the weight of destiny pressing upon her? Her fingers trembled as she touched her own face, feeling the warm, young skin that contradicted the vision in the lake. She closed her eyes, took a breath, and let go. The reflection rippled, distorting, and as she opened her eyes again, it was gone. The lake returned to stillness, its surface unbroken, holding her reflection once more. She rose and continued on, the image lingering like a ghost behind her. A reminder of time's inevitable passage. The path grew thornier, the jungle closing in around her as if trying to smother her resolve. Vines as thick as her wrist twisted around trees, while sharp thorns scratched her arms and caught on her cloak, tearing small holes into the fabric. Each scratch stung, but with each scratch, she felt herself grow more determined, her resolve carved into her skin. She could hear the distant hum of insects, the whisper of leaves, and beneath it all, a soft, pulsing rhythm that echoed her heartbeat. She came upon a narrow passage between two towering trees. their trunks adorned with luminous flowers that glowed in shades of violet and blue. Their scent was intoxicating, filling the air with a sweetness that made her head swim, her body sway with a strange drowsiness. The path narrowed, and as she passed between the trees, the flowers seemed to bloom even wider, their petals unfurling in a slow, hypnotic dance. Her eyes grew heavy, her limbs slack, and she felt a strange desire to lie down beneath them, to let their sweet perfume carry her into dreams. But some instinct jolted her awake, a warning that hissed from the back of her mind. She forced herself to move, to stagger past the blossoms, feeling the thick sweetness recede as she stumbled further down the path. She glanced back once, and for a brief moment she thought she saw faces within the flowers. Their eyes closed in eternal slumber. She shivered and quickened her pace, leaving the haunting blooms behind. Night fell quickly, as if the sky itself were conspiring to plunge her into darkness. She made camp by a twisted tree, its roots coiled like the arms of some ancient beast, and built a small fire. The flames crackled and danced, casting flickering light onto the surrounding trees, making their shadows twist and contort as if alive. She wrapped herself in her cloak and sat before the fire, its warmth both comforting and strange in the cold, silent wilderness. The jungle was quiet, too quiet, and she could feel the weight of his gaze, as though it were watching her from every shadow, every leaf. She closed her eyes, letting sleep take her, and was haunted by strange dreams, of feathers the color of twilight, of a sky fractured into endless hues. She saw flashes of the phoenix, its eyes gleaming like stars, its wings stirring the wind, and heard a voice that wasn't hers, calling her name. When she woke, the dreams lingered, and she felt both comforted and unsettled, as if the phoenix itself had been testing her resolve, even in her sleep. As dawn broke, she rose, feeling a weight lifted from her heart, as though she had passed through something invisible yet profound. The jungle seemed less oppressive, its shadows less menacing, though the trials had left their mark on her, as if her spirit had been etched with unseen symbols. Her arms bore the faint scars of her journey, and her mind carried the memories of visions that felt both real and distant. But she knew that her trials were far from over. The jungle would demand more of her yet. It would test her spirit, her courage, and her heart, stripping away everything until only her truest self remained. And somewhere ahead, past the thorns and shadows, lay the domain of the rainbow phoenix, waiting for her to prove herself worthy. Alina awoke to a dawn unlike any other she had seen in the jungle. The air was thick with silence, a quiet so profound it seemed to vibrate with meaning. The usual sounds of birds and rustling leaves were absent, as if the jungle itself were holding its breath, waiting for her to move. She rose slowly, brushing the damp leaves from her cloak, her every sense alive and tuned to something beyond her comprehension. As she walked, the trees grew sparser, the undergrowth thinning until she found herself stepping into a glade bathed in a strange, otherworldly light. It was neither the warmth of dawn nor the burn of afternoon sun, but an ethereal glow, as though the very air were luminous, shimmering with a soft radiance that seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere at once. Colors she could not name danced in beams around her, flowing over her skin like the touch of something ancient and divine. In the center of the glade stood a circle of stones, each one smooth and polished, placed with such care that they appeared to have been set there by unseen hands. At the heart of this circle, where the light was brightest, she saw it. The rainbow phoenix. The creature was beyond anything she could have imagined, and for a moment, Alina felt as if she was seeing the heart of the world itself. Its feathers shifted colors with each breath, flowing from deep crimson to brilliant sapphire, to emerald, to gold, and then into shades she could not describe. Colors that seemed to pulse from within the bird itself, as if they were alive. The phoenix was enormous, its wings folded with a grace that spoke of millennia, its eyes deep pools of light, ancient and knowing. Alina stood transfixed, her heart thundering. She felt exposed, as if the creature were looking straight into her soul, seeing her secrets, her fears, and her deepest desires. It tilted its head, and for a moment she felt the weight of its gaze as both a blessing and a challenge. She understood now that this was not merely a creature of beauty. It was a being of power, of wisdom that went beyond any mortal understanding. It was, in essence, the keeper of dreams and the weaver of fate. Alina took a step forward, then another, her footsteps light on the soft ground. She felt as though she were moving through a dream, every motion slowed, every breath magnified. She could barely find the courage to meet the phoenix's gaze, but something within her, a faint, trembling hope, urged her to speak. "I have come seeking a wish," she murmured, her voice barely a whisper. The phoenix regarded her in silence, its eyes unreadable. A shimmer passed through its feathers, a silent acknowledgement of her words, though it did not move or speak. Alina felt the weight of her journey pressing on her, the memories of her trials flickering in her mind like fragments of a half-forgotten song. And then, as if prompted by the very heart of the jungle itself, she spoke her wish aloud. "I wish for my village to be free of the hardships that bind them," she said, her voice steadier now. "I wish for my friends, my family, to know peace and prosperity. I wish for them to be safe, for the burdens of their lives to be lightened." The words hung in the air, and for a moment Alina felt an intense vulnerability, as if she had exposed a piece of herself that she could never reclaim. The phoenix watched her, and she sensed a depth of understanding in its gaze, as if it could see the roots of her wish, the selflessness braided with her own fears and desires. Without warning, the phoenix unfurled its wings. The air around it shimmered with a cascade of colors that washed over Alina, filling her with a warmth and lightness she had never known. It was as though she was standing within the heart of a rainbow, wrapped in hues that caressed her skin, filled her lungs, and danced within her mind. The jungle seemed to hold its breath, the light intensifying until it became almost blinding. A vision of beauty that felt too vast for mortal eyes. And then just as suddenly, it faded, leaving Alina blinking in the soft silvery light of the glade. She was alone. The rainbow phoenix had vanished, leaving behind only a single feather, a breathtakingly beautiful plume that shifted in color, just as the phoenix had in shades too vibrant to belong to this world. Alina knelt, picking up the feather with reverence, feeling its warmth pulse through her fingers. It was a reminder, a token of the encounter, and she knew that it held the power of the wish she had made. She felt a peace settle over her heart, a certainty that her journey had not been in vain. Her wish had been heard, and somehow she knew it would be granted. With a final glance around the glade, Alina turned and began her journey back, clutching the feather close. She carried with her not just the hope of a better future for her village, but the memory of a creature that had granted her a glimpse of the infinite. The rainbow phoenix had chosen her, deemed her worthy, and woven her wish into the fabric of fate itself. Alina walked out of the jungle with the feather of the rainbow phoenix nestled against her heart. Her steps felt lighter, though her mind was heavy with the weight of the encounter, as if she had been given something precious and indescribable. The jungle's oppressive weight had lifted, and now, instead of shadows and whispers, it seemed to hum with a gentle farewell, its leaves rustling in approval. The trees parted easily before her, the underbrush no longer tugging at her clothes, as if even the jungle understood that she had been changed by what lay within its heart. When she emerged from the depths of the forest, her village was in sight, but it appeared different somehow, bathed in a golden light that felt almost unreal, as though the touch of the phoenix's magic had brushed it too. She paused on the outskirts, her hand clutching the feather tightly. She was hesitant, uncertain of what awaited her. The village she had left felt like a distant memory, and she wondered if anyone would recognize her, if they would understand what she had endured. As she approached, she saw the villagers gathered in the square. Their faces were filled with astonishment and warmth, their eyes brighter, their postures no longer bent by the invisible weight that had once draped over them like a shroud. They looked up as she entered, a murmur rippling through the crowd, and for a moment she thought she saw in their eyes the same colors that had enveloped her in the phoenix's glade. Her mother stepped forward first, her face a mixture of wonder and disbelief. "Alina," she whispered, reaching out as if to touch a ghost. "You came back." Her voice trembled, but her gaze was filled with relief. Alina smiled, holding out the feather, which shimmered in her hand with an inner light that reflected the hues of sunrise and twilight, a token of her wish and of the creature she had met. "I found the rainbow phoenix," she said softly, as if speaking too loudly might break the spell that seemed to hang over the village. "And I made a wish for all of you." At her words, the villagers pressed closer, their expressions shifting from amazement to joy. Alina could see it in their faces, the changes wrought by the magic of the phoenix. The lines of worry and hardship had softened. Their eyes now held a spark of hope. The crops in the distant fields glowed with a healthy green. The river sparkled in the morning light, and the air seemed fresher, filled with a quiet energy that had been missing for so long. In the days that followed, Alina watched as her village transformed, touched by the power of the phoenix's blessing. The once meager fields flourished, bursting with abundance. The river that had run sluggishly now sparkled with clear, clean water, its banks lined with blossoms that seemed to have sprung up overnight. The children, who had once seemed gaunt and weary, now ran with laughter in their voices and color in their cheeks. Even the elders, who had long been burdened with aches and sorrows, walked with lighter steps, their faces lifted to the sky as if seeing it anew. Yet, there was a strange peace in Alina's heart, a stillness that felt both comforting and sorrowful. She knew that her wish had come at a cost, a secret exchange that only she and the phoenix understood. Her life would remain forever touched by that encounter, by the quiet, otherworldly wisdom she had glimpsed in the creature's eyes. It was a knowledge that had rooted itself within her, a bond with the jungle and the mystery at its heart. She often found herself drawn to the forest's edge, where she would sit alone, clutching the feather, gazing into the depths of the jungle that now felt like an old friend. She could sense it watching her still, a quiet, eternal witness to her journey, to the choice she had made, and the wish she had granted. And though she never ventured back into the jungle's depths, she knew that it would always be with her, a part of her soul bound to the rainbow phoenix and the magic it held. As the seasons changed, Alina's tale became a part of the village's whispered legends, passed down with the same reverence as the story that had first led her into the jungle. The villagers spoke of her journey with awe, embellishing the story with each retelling. Though no one truly understood what she had seen or the sacrifice she had made, they knew only that their lives were touched by magic, that they lived under the light of an impossible wish granted by a creature none had ever seen. And somewhere, hidden deep within the jungle, the rainbow phoenix waited, its wings folded in timeless patience, knowing that one day someone else would come seeking its gift.